Hello and welcome to today's digital workshop brought to you by Contract Flooring Journal. Our topic for today is subfloors and screeds. We know that this is an essential part of our work, whether we're going in and preparing estimates and having to look at the condition of the subfloor of the area that we've been asked to estimate for, or whether we're actually the installers going in and having to create that good foundation in order to ensure that we can create a brilliant looking installation. I'm delighted that today we have three manufacturers with us to introduce us to some of their products and also to give us the tips and tricks to help us to make the most of not only their products but our installation work in general. And we're going to start straight away by going over to Ultrafloor, who have collated some of the questions that they get from installers about the products that they produce. They're going to introduce us to those products and also put those questions to their technical team. So I'm delighted that Lizzie Hudson, their brand manager, is ready with two of her colleagues to discuss some of those questions. Let's go over to Lizzie now. Thank you.
Hi and welcome to the Instamat Training Academy. I'm Lizzie Hudson, brand manager for Ultrafloor. I'm here today with Martin and Alan, technical and training site support managers, and we're going to have a discussion, ask a few questions all related to subfloor preparation. Most of the questions are things that we've been sent in by viewers, customers, so I hope you find it helpful. So I'll dive straight in. Our new product, Level It Pro 30, similar to the Level It Bond, with that product we say no need to prime, and it can go over adhesive residues and bitumen residues, well, bitumen in general. Alan, why don't you need to prime with those products, do you think?
So for adhesion purposes, Level It Bond and Pro 30 have got a lot of polymer in them. So for actually creating that bond to the subfloor, there's no need to prime. Whereas with a normal cementitious levelling compound, you'd need to actually prime to create a mechanical key. So that key would then help that product bond to the floor. With Level It Bond on non-porous surfaces, there's enough polymer within that product to actually give it that full bond to the floor. Where we say you would need to prime is for other reasons. So things like porosity in the floor, to consolidate substrates, create chemical barriers, get true flow out of the product and things like that, that's when you'd need to prime. So the statement no need to prime is there for the adhesion purposes, not for all the other, like the preparation side.
So you don't need to prime in order for it to actually stick, adhere to the floor.
No.
But if you want that lovely smooth finish, you don't want the pinhole in, you want the flow to be a little bit better because the moisture's not been sucked out. That's why you would still recommend that you should prime.
Yeah, definitely.
What about adhesive residues then? So Level It Bond and Level It Pro 30 can go over adhesive residues, so presumably you don't have to get those up. Is that all adhesive residues?
No, if you've got water soluble residues, like adhesive residues, you will need to remove it for the simple reason the product's wet. So therefore the adhesive residues will reconstitute back into a liquid, doing you no favours. So we'd always advise with water soluble residues that they're removed.
So presumably that would be the same for any leavening compound because they all have water or a liquid in some way, so anything that's water soluble, that product will affect it.
Yeah. So with, as Martin said, with water soluble adhesive residues, you have to remove 100%. The reason being is, again, it's to stop the breakdown of that residue underneath the levelling compound. If you've got, say, a bitumen or a non-water soluble adhesive residue, removing 75% of that is sufficient to actually allow the product to bond. And when we say 75%, we don't mean that quarter of the room can be left. It's all about the depth of the product. So when you put an adhesive onto a floor or a bitumen onto a floor, you will get quite a lot that actually penetrates into the subfloor. That's the remaining 25% that you can leave. So anything off the surface, anything that we would class as a thickness, would need to be removed, whereas the rest can be left and then levelled over. But with a water soluble, you do have to remove 100%.
So what is it about Level It Bond, Level It Pro 30 over any of our other levelers that makes it okay with those? Because a lot of the other products, we say adhesive residues have got to come up full stop.
It's the strength. It's purely to do with the strength of the product. So being that Pro 30 and Level It Bond are a very soft, malleable product, they only dry to about 16 newtons. They haven't got the tension there to actually pull off of the surface. If you imagine you've got something hard drying over the top of something soft, as that's drying and curing, creating tension, it will just pull at what's below it. And Level It Bond and Pro 30 won't do that.
So with Pro 30 and Level It Bond then, especially with Pro 30 being the newer one, does that mean perhaps less important, perhaps not as important?
It reduces the amount of prep that you would need to do, because obviously these products are more forgiving, but obviously if you want that seamless, nice glass-like finish, it's in your preparation. You know, you can't just expect to put it down and to give you that seamless look unless you've done any preparation.
They're less of a less prep and more of a just in case. If you've got smoothing compounds that are already down on the floor, you don't know how strong they are. You don't know if you're putting something strong on top of something soft. What if you've got adhesive residues, you don't always have the ability to remove the top 2 or 3 mil of a slab to get rid of 100%. It's less about doing less prep and it's more about just the right product for the job.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose with the Level It Pro 30, the Level It Bond, it could potentially save you some prep time, but if you still want that really, really smooth finish, you could get the time back by using a faster product like Pro 30. So instead of cutting down your time priming, spend that time, prime, do it properly, save you time in the set time with the product.
100%, yeah. So where you've got that rapid setting product, you haven't got to wait for basically you can wait for primers to dry. You're only talking 20 minutes for your first coat, 20 minutes for your second coat. You gain that back by using the rapid setting product in the 30-minute drying time.
Do you need to use a primer, for example, because we've talked about the importance of priming? We really would like people to always use a primer before putting the levelling compounds on. Do you need to use a primer before applying something like a feather compound or a patching compound?
Again, you are better to. It's always best to prime because you're creating a key. But most of the time, if you're just feathering in a slight hump in the floor or something like that, most people and most of the time it doesn't.
If it's only a small area, then not necessarily. But if you're doing a large area, such as boards, for instance, timber boards, it's not going to do any harm by priming it. It's going to increase the adhesion that you get in between the product and the board.
Right. So if in doubt, prime.
Yeah.
Does priming ever do any harm? Is there any times you'd say don't prime?
It can do.
If you over prime.
If you over prime. So let's say, for example, we had very porous substrate and we put a neat coat of primer on. The problem that you've got there is the primer won't be able to absorb into all of the small holes. It will be like a thick layer on the surface. Because you've got that very absorbent floor, the primer is only actually sticking to micro parts, the edges of the pores, not the actual inside. It's not anchoring in. So you actually find that you'll create a weaker bond than you would if you hadn't primed at all.
Right.
So the only time we'd say priming could cause an issue is priming incorrectly. So MSP, for example, there's only 2 ways to lay it. So it's diluted on porous and then undiluted on non-porous.
Right, so pay attention to your ratios when you're priming and you won't go wrong. So we only have one primer and that can be used across all different subfloors. Is there anything our primer can't be used on, Alan?
The only thing we do recommend with our primer is for external use. We do a separate primer through one of our other brands. We have another primer for external use. Other than that, MSP can be used on every surface in any dilution. So either neat for a non-porous or diluted 3:1 for porous substrates.
So you can have one primer on the van, and pretty much any job that you rock up
Yep.
to, that's going to be the right primer.
Yep.
How long do we usually recommend mixing for, Martin?
Generally, we say 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Purely that is the right length of time to break down the polymers so that the polymers get to work, they get all around the mix, so that the product will perform as it's designed to. If you're not going to mix it for long enough, you've still got dried polymers in there, it's not going to flow correctly, you're not going to get the same performance out of the product.
So Level It Renovate is a really, really popular product of ours. I think it's safe to say it's the fastest growing product, and a lot of people seem to be using it and loving it, which is absolutely fantastic. Renovate, I think we've recently announced, can be used outdoors, can be used as a wearing course, can go up to 40 mil, moisture tolerant, 4-hour cover time, really seems to be able to do everything. Is Level It Renovate a good product for an application such as a garage, where it might be exposed to a little bit of outside, where it's going to have a wear course? Is it hard enough to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean the Level It Renovate can be used externally, internally. So as you say, it has got a wear course on it, so it will wear very well. You won't see signs of damage to it. You can also put coatings on it, such as epoxy paints, clear epoxy resins, if you're after that to like wear out your look. So yeah, it's a really good versatile product.
So Alan and Martin, thank you very much for your time today. I really enjoyed our discussion. I hope that everyone's found it useful. Please continue to send your questions in and we'll get those answered, and we're always here if you need to speak to us. Thank you.
Well, special thanks to Lizzie and to Martin and Alan from Ultrafloor, and we're going to be joined by 2 of them in our questions and answers session at the end of today's presentations. So remember, this is your opportunity to put your questions in the chat box, which is there on your screen. If you type your questions out, I'll pick those up and make sure that we put those questions to the experts on our panel. This is a great time to remind you of the CFJ Live Expo. This is the next step, if you like. It's a much bigger event than our regular digital workshops. The Live Expo is on Thursday the 1st of July. It starts at 2 o'clock, it runs for 5 hours, and there'll be lots of things going on at the same time. There'll be demonstrations, there'll be presentations from various manufacturers, and as well as a main stage, there'll be breakout rooms that you can access to make sure that you get the most out of the program. You can focus on the areas of flooring that are of special interest to you, and if you have some extra time, you can delve into some others and expand your knowledge as well. It's free, but we ask you to register. So click on the link when you see it for the Live Expo and register your interest for the 1st of July. I've already been over to the Fitter Training Centre in Loughborough, where we've done some preliminary work to start to plan how best we can get the information across to you on camera so that you can really learn a lot on that afternoon. So now it's time for us to go over to F. Ball & Company. I'm delighted today to be joined by Simon Jenkins, one of their area managers. Simon, welcome to this CFJ Digital Workshop.
Thank you, Richard.
Tell me, what does an area manager actually do? What does your day-to-day job entail?
My role is supporting our technical representatives who provide technical support to our flooring contractors as and when they need it, and working closely with our wholesalers.
Okay, so would I take it from that a lot of your time is spent talking to people like wholesalers who are buying your product in bulk?
Yeah, my time would be speaking with the wholesalers, making sure that they're well supported with all the technical information that they require when their representatives are going out into the market. But equally, having come from an area technical representative background myself, I've spent an awful lot of time talking to guys on their knees and helping them as and when required with technical advice on site, over the phone, and in these modern times, virtually.
Well, that's great, because today, through this digital workshop, you're going to have the opportunity not to be talking about the people who are buying in bulk, but actually to be talking to contractors who want to know why, for instance, they should be using the next product that we're going to be looking at. So we're going to have a video that you've sent to us on your Fast Track 30, which I believe is one of your newer products. What can you tell us about this before we actually watch the video?
Well, the most important people when it comes to F-Ball are the fitters on the other end of the trowel. And Fast Track 30 delivers to these fitters a product that is exactly that, Fast Track. If they've got a long way to travel or they've got a very time-sensitive job, Fast Track 30 is ideal because it's walk on in 30 minutes, but you can actually be fitting floors on that after 45 minutes.
So that's very much Fast Track. Okay, well, let's have a look at the video now.
Stopgap Fast Track 30 is a rapid drying, rapid setting, self-leveling smoothing underlayment that incorporates the latest advances in cement technology, providing a truly fast-track solution. It is suitable for use in light to heavy-duty applications for preparing sound, absorbent and non-absorbent subfloors prior to the installation of new floor coverings. Pour 4 litres of clean water into a stopgap mixing bucket and gradually add the 16 kilogram bag of powder whilst stirring with a power whisk fitted in an electric drill until a smooth, creamy and lump-free consistency is achieved. The material should be mixed for a minimum of 2 minutes. Do not exceed 4.25 litres of water. Pour the mixed material onto the prepared subfloor, primed with Stopgap P131 General Purpose Primer, and allow to flow and attain a smooth finish. Minimal work with a smoothing trowel is required. The mixed material can be applied between 2mm and 10mm. For optimum smoothing and levelling, a minimum of 3mm thickness should be applied. Depending on temperature, Fast Track 30 will have a working time of approximately 10 to 15 minutes. The use of a spiked roller is recommended immediately to eliminate trapped air and smooth out flow lines to give a more uniform appearance. Fast Track 30 is based on the latest advances in cement and polymer technology, enabling fast track application prior to the installation of new floor coverings. Due to rapid drying technology, it will allow foot traffic from 30 minutes and the bonding of textile and resilient floor coverings from 45 minutes. There's nothing faster than Fast Track 30 for when time really matters.
So, Simon, that was the Stopgap Fast Track 30, and I noticed that it said mix it with 4 litres of water, but it also then said whatever you do, don't mix it with more than 4.25 litres of water. Why is the amount of water so critical?
The amount of water you add to any of our water mix products is critical purely because it'll have a bearing on how hard they set. We allow a 1/4 of a litre tolerance with the Fast Track 30 to allow for conditions on site. The product is applied in the depths of winter when it might be very cold, and in the heights of summer where it might be very hot. So there is a tolerance to it, but we advise not to exceed that tolerance because eventually too much water will impair its performance.
Will it affect its drying time as well?
By adding extra liquid, it will also have an impact on the drying time.
Okay, well, we're going to go on now to look at a video for another product, which is your Stopgap 300 HD. Now, what does HD stand for?
HD is heavy duty. Stopgap 300 is ideal in commercial or healthcare settings, but one of the areas it gets used most for currently is for installations of luxury vinyl tiles, LVTs, because it flows very, very well. It gains its strength very, very quickly, and it has a high final strength. So for both environments, in a domestic scenario with a luxury vinyl tile or in a hospital corridor, HD is the ideal product for both.
Okay, so I'm thinking hospital corridor, trolleys, wheels, heavy stuff being rolled across. This sounds like the ideal product for that. Perhaps we'll go to the video now and take a look. Thank you.
Stopgap 300 is a fast-drying, smoothing underlayment with excellent self-smoothing properties. Pour 5.5 litres of clean water into a Stopgap mixing bucket and gradually add all the powder whilst stirring with a power whisk fitted in an electric drill until a smooth, creamy, lump-free consistency is achieved. The material should be mixed for a minimum of 2 minutes. Pour the mixed material onto the prepared subfloor and allow to flow and attain a smooth finish. Minimal work with a smoothing trowel is required. The mixed material should be applied at thicknesses between 2 and 15 millimeters, but can be taken down to a feathered edge if required. For best results, an overall thickness of at least 3 millimeters should be maintained. Stopgap 300 can also be pump applied up to 1,500 square meters per day, dependent on manpower, thickness and equipment used. For application up to 20 millimeters, graded aggregate can be added to the mix in the ratio of 12.5 kilograms of aggregate to 1 unit of standard mix. The use of a spiked roller will help eliminate trapped air and smooth out flow lines to give a more uniform appearance.
That's great. Thank you for that one, Simon. I noticed that there the mix of water was 5.5 litres. Is that because it's a more flowing product, or what's the reason for the bigger quantity?
The reason for the bigger quantity is Stopgap 30 and Stopgap 300 both have very, very good flow properties. The extra water is the Stopgap 30 comes in a 16 kg bag, whereas the Stopgap 300 HD comes in a 25 kg bag. So proportionally, the mixes are about the same, but that's the reason for the difference between 3 to 5.5.
So nobody's got to start thinking about bag sizes and things like that, because I assume all this information is very clearly on the bag to help people to get the mix right.
That's right. We've got the full data sheet is printed on the bag itself. There's also a QR code which will take you to the online data sheet. All our information is online, and now it's available in multiple languages as we move into Europe and further afield.
Okay, and we've spoken before. When I spoke to Steve Bolton a few weeks ago, we were looking at the recommended adhesives guide, and of course the information in there covers these smoothing compounds as
Precisely.
well.
With the water mix, it's as important as applying adhesive and using the correct knot size. Applying too little water or too much water will have an effect on the performance of the product, as will applying too much or too little adhesive.
Now we're going to go on to our third video, and this time we're looking at Stopgap 1200 Pro. again, I'm going to ask you the question, what does the Pro stand for?
Pro is because the product was designed specifically with flooring professionals in mind. It's our most versatile product within the range, allowing the flooring installer, when they turn up to site, to deal with the majority of scenarios that they may find, because unfortunately we don't get x-ray vision when we're looking at jobs, and very often we lift floor coverings to find a multitude of sins underneath, which we then need to deal with. So the Pro is designed with flooring professionals in mind.
And I guess that means it needs to be applied with professionalism and in accordance with the instructions
Correct.
on the pack.
Correct. Although the product is very easy to apply, we always look to support the flooring professional.
So tell me a little bit more about this product before we look at the video together.
Stopgap 1200 is designed for predominantly the refurbishment market, where we're lifting up old floor coverings and you find adhesive residue or old floor smoothing underlayment residue already present on the surface, rather than, or it may be that you haven't got the opportunity to prepare the floor in the time constraint of the contract. So Stopgap 1200 is designed to go over the majority of old adhesive residues directly, and it isn't always necessary to prime, although we would always recommend priming. It's not required with the Stopgap 1200, again making the flooring professional's job easier and quicker.
And I guess the number of times we come across old adhesives and we really don't want the hassle of having to scrape them off. Okay. I just want to remind those who've tuned in today that you have the opportunity to ask your questions to Simon and to the others who've appeared in today's digital workshop. So please, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll pick those up. And when we get to the chat room at the end of the program, we'll put those questions to our experts for you. But for now, let's have a look at this video on Stopgap 1200 Pro.
Stopgap 1200 Pro is a low-odor, fast-setting, fast-drying, two-component smoothing underlayment, suitable for preparing a wide range of sound internal subfloors prior to the installation of new floor coverings. Stopgap 1200 is particularly suitable for use over old adhesive residues, such as bitumen and carpet tile tackifier, without the need to prime. It can also be used to smooth uneven, damp screeds prior to the application of a waterproof surface membrane. In certain situations, priming may not be necessary. Please consult the product datasheet or contact F-Ball Technical Service Department. Pour 5 litres of Stopgap 1200 Pro liquid into a mixing bucket and gradually add the 20 kilogram bag of powder whilst stirring with a power whisk fitted in an electric drill until a smooth, creamy and lump-free consistency is achieved. Pour the mix onto the prepared subfloor and allow to flow to attain a smooth finish. Minimal work with a trowel is required. Stopgap 1200 Pro should be applied at thicknesses between 2 to 10 millimeters and has a working time of 15 to 20 minutes. Stopgap 1200 Pro is protein-free, which allows it to be used in clinical and biologically sensitive areas and has been tested for use in marine floor installations by DNV, Det Norsk Veritas. The use of a spiked roller will help to eliminate trapped air and provide a more uniform surface finish. Stopgap 1200 Pro is the professional's choice for minimum preparation combined with maximum performance, guaranteed.
Well, thanks again to Simon for putting up with my questions and giving us so much information. Now it's time for me to talk to you about our next session. That's going to be on Tuesday the 25th of May. So 4 weeks from now, we have a session about designing with shapes. A lot of the products that we have come in regular shapes. You know, we have different types of woodblock flooring and parquet patterns, herringbones, chevrons, and then when it comes to LVT tiles, the range of shapes is quite extensive. What's the best way to use them to put together a project that really stands out for the customer and generates business for us? Well, Tuesday 25th of May, register now, it's free as usual, and you'll get the opportunity not only to listen to the presenters and the presentations that are put to you, but you'll be able to ask your own questions of the expert panel that we'll have in the chat room at the end of the session. And of course, if you've got questions about any of what you've heard or seen today, our guests will be waiting for us in the chat room after our next presentation. It's time for us now to go over to Unifloor, and we're going to look at a product which some of you will be familiar with, but some of you, it may just be a name, but this is a product that has solved an awful lot of issues with problem subfloors. It's the product Jumpax, and we're going to watch a video before we then go into our questions and answers session. So let's go over to Unifloor now. Well, thank you to Unifloor, and also thank you to Ultrafloor and F-Ball, who've done our presentations for us today, and all of whom have people waiting for us in the chat room. So now's the time to click on the sessions button on your screen, and a pop-up will come up to you that you can click on in order to join us in the chat room. I'm going to do the same, so click on that link, join us in the chat room in a few moments for our questions and answers session. Thanks.
Well, I think as quite a few people have come across now into the chat room, I'm going to start with you two guys and hope that others join us. Martin, if I'm right, you're Technical Training and Support Manager for Ultrafloor.
That's correct, yes.
And we saw you being interviewed by Lizzie earlier, and here's Lizzie come on board too. Hi, Lizzie.
Good timing. Hello.
Welcome. I thought I would start with you two guys, Martin and Lizzie, because the Ultrafloor presentation opened our program today. So I think it'll be good to go back and just refresh ourselves. Now, one of the things that fascinated me, Martin, was you talked about a 75%, 25% ratio of cleaning the floor if you'd got old adhesive residues on there.
Yes.
And I'm not quite sure I got that. Are you saying that the residue needs to be cleaned off, but anything that's soaked into the subfloor is fine to leave?
That's correct.
Or can you just go into it for me?
Yeah, I mean, ideally what you would like is you would like a floor that is clean and contaminant free. So if you've got something, say for instance, bitumen residues from old thermoplastic tiles, you would try and remove as much as possible. Obviously there will be a lot that's bedded in ground into the concrete face. So by copper disking the top surface to remove the 75% of the thickness, so obviously the 25%, a lot of that is going to be ingrained within the cement. So that's why you try and remove as much as possible, which will inhibit adhesion.
Okay, and then obviously your recommendation is, if you can, prime.
Yes. Yeah,
I think that
I mean,
came
it
across
doesn't
very
do any
well.
harm priming, because what it does is it puts a chemical barrier between any impurities that may be in the floor to the product that you're putting on the top. Also, it creates a chemical key.
Okay, Lizzie, can I just come to you now, because we've got the brand Ultrafloor, which you're responsible for, and we've looked at a couple of the products in your range, but for flooring contractors, how big a range of products do you have?
Well, we have quite a fair range of subfloor preparation materials. Ultrafloor don't do any adhesives for flooring, but we do anything cement based. That really is our speciality. So we have quite a wide range. I think we have over 10 sort of leveling compounds in our range. We try and keep it so there's not too many overlaps, so people aren't having to, you know, stock 5 different levelers to cover all kind of jobs. But what we're increasingly seeing is people are really demanding more from their product, so they don't just want something fast. They don't just want something that can go over underfloor heating. They want these sort of multi-purpose products. But then as sort of subcategories within that, people have really sort of specific wants and needs about set times, depths that it can go to, and what it can cover over as well. So we are seeing sort of this appetite of products needing to do more. Level It 2 is perhaps our sort of most well-known product now, and that is a really versatile product. But people tend to have a couple more on top of that to cover any sort of specific niche jobs that they've got as well. So our range is sort of widened over the years. We also do primers, products to deal with sort of moisture, DPM, suppressant, But yeah, mostly focused on the smoothing compounds.
Okay, so if we want to see the broader range, and if we want to be able to select the particular product we need for any application, where do we go to get that information, Lizzie?
Yeah, absolutely. So a wide range of places where that information is stored. I think the website is probably going to be the easiest. So the company that Ultrafloor sits within is called Instamac, which is INSTARMAC. So if you Google Instamac or type in www.instamac.co.uk, you'll then see the Ultrafloor logo on the website there, and you can sort of see the full range of products, as well as FAQs, technical support, library of videos. All data sheets and safety sheets are on there as well. But then, of course, you can find us across social media channels. So that would be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and most recently TikTok as well. Although I think it's mostly fun videos on there that we're sharing from our customers. We also have a handy product planner app, which you can download free from the App Store. So that's available sort of wherever you normally download your apps, whether that be Android or iOS systems. So really suited to anyone, wherever you would like to find that information. And our sales team and internal team have a range of brochures and sort of printed links that we can post out to you if you'd like. So you can contact us and buy the details on our website to get access to those.
That's brilliant. Thanks ever so much. And what I'm going to do is, we've been joined now by David Hibbert as well as Mike O'Brien from Unifloor, and we saw the presentation about Jumpax. I'm not sure which one of you two gentlemen are best to answer this question for me, but why would I use Jumpax rather than the more conventional smoothing compounds or even plywood? I'll let you fight over who answers me.
I'll go with that one, Mike.
Okay.
I think you would use Jumpax because Jumpax solves problem floors. It is not the answer to everything, but it is a great answer to, shall we say, problem floors, and to give you the sound insulation, to cover floors that you don't necessarily want to cover permanently. So as a temporary floor covering, it's very, very useful, particularly used on antique floors, antique wood, marble, antique tiles, that type of thing, where they want a change of use. And also it gets used very regularly for temporary floors within stores, where other like shops take over certain areas in stores and need their corporate image in there. And it's many, many uses.
Okay, Mike, you got anything to add to that?
Obviously, Jumpax fills a couple of requirements which are really useful. I mean, obviously, all of our products were initially designed as acoustic underlays, so they obviously give a impact noise reduction to the substrate for the floor covering to go on the surface. That's obviously one of the biggest criteria for why Unifloor designed their ranges, and Jumpax obviously has a very high impact noise reduction of between 22 to 23 dB with the floor covering on. Obviously, the British standards for a lot of places such as new apartments, flats, refurbished buildings, student accommodation require that they be above 18 dB. So obviously that we fulfill that requirement very well. Also, the other thing it gets used for predominantly is the speed of installation. Sometimes it can be time critical to get into a particular job, get the job fitted and get back out again in a short period of time, which doesn't always allow for drying. So obviously that's where the Jumpax system works very well. Or maybe where you're covering 3 different floor coverings at the same time. You might have an asphalt floor, a concrete floor, a timber floor, with separations between all those different areas. And Jumpax obviously gives you a solution where you can just float straight across all 3.
Okay. I've got 4 very quick questions, and then I'm going to go back to the guys from Ultrafloor. And it's more to do with the installation and the requirement. How flat does the subfloor need to be if you're going to use Jumpax?
Up to 3 millimeters of irregularity will be absorbed by the underlay on the baseboard. So if it's above 3 mil of irregularities, obviously you would need to use some form of other method to smooth it first before you apply the jump packs.
Okay, David, I'll ask this one to you, but it's another quick one. I noticed that your instructions are to cut it with a concave blade on a knife. Are there other methods of cutting it? Would you use a jigsaw, for instance?
There's no need to use a jigsaw. It's very easy to cut. And using the concave blade scores the jump axe board enough for you to be able to crack it towards you, as you saw on the video, and give you a very clean edge.
But what if you need to do a cut, say, to scribe around an architrave or something like that?
Still very easily done with a Stanley knife.
Okay. Mike, another quick one for you. The hammering of the top panels to the base panels. How much hammering have you got to do?
Not a great deal. The adhesive which is on the base of the top board and the top of the top of the baseboard and the underside of the top board is an interactive adhesive, and obviously it reacts with pressure to form the bond. So it's just a rubber mallet, and it's just 2 or 3 light taps on the board as you put them down. It's just to create that reaction with the adhesive to get the bonding effect.
So am I right in thinking that if you do some spots where the adhesive is bonded, the rest of it is going to bond over time as you use the flooring?
That's it, yeah. I mean, just simple footfall on the surface will obviously enhance that adhesion.
Yeah. Okay, well, last one before we go back to Unifloor. David, I'll ask this one of you. Jump Axe is obviously a floating flooring system.
Yep.
We know that moisture and floating floors don't go well together. What can you tell us?
Well, that's why we recommend under all jump packs, we would recommend a polythene sheet. And you'll see that on the video there, they're laying a blue polythene sheet under the floor covering, which then actually protects the jump axe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but you do get movement. So I noticed you needed to put spacers in around the edge. And...
Yeah, you leave a space around the edge for the movement within the floor covering, but minimal movement when the floor covering is adhered.
That's brilliant. Thanks, guys. Let's go back to Ultrafloor. And Martin, the question that we've got come up here is quite a technical one.
Yes.
So I'm going to give this one to you. And that's the question of anhydrite. Right. It's a hot potato at the moment for a lot of installers.
It is, yeah.
What can you tell us?
Right, where anhydrite is concerned, if it's heated, the first thing that must be done is it must be run through its heat cycle to ensure that the floor has done all its movement, its expansion and contraction and such like, and the cracking initially. Once that's been achieved, what we would suggest then is that the latency is removed, because you will get a latent, which is the finer particles of the gypsum that are floated to the surface during the drying process. That's got to be completely removed through mechanical means. Once you've removed that and give it a good vacuum, then it will require priming twice. So you first coat, particularly with our product, the MSP, the multi-surface primer, the first coat would be at a 1 to 3 dilution, which takes 20 minutes to cure, and then a second coat at a 1 to 1 dilution at 90 degrees to the first coat. Once that is achieved, then you can apply your leveling compound. Obviously, your leveling compound needs to be something that will accept underfloor heating. So, for instance, with one of our products, it would be the Level-It 2, absolutely fine for that. But once you've obviously got the leveling compound down and you've got your floor covering down, then you've got to recommission the underfloor heating. Because if you just literally switch the underfloor heating back on to its running temperature, what it will do is it will thermal shock the floor. So in the instance, you've got to bring it up to temperature gradually as you would do before, run it at full temperature for about 3 to 4 days, and then allow it to cool. Then it can click in and out as it requires.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive, and that's great. Thank you for that. Lizzie, let me come to you and ask you, in your range, do you have any fibre reinforced smoothing compounds, and when would you recommend using them?
Yeah, absolutely. Just tagging on to the back of what Martin said there, and I can see someone's raised it in the Q&A as well, is to look out for moisture with anhydrite as well. It is really key to make sure that that's dry. Certainly with our range, there's nothing really that we'd recommend if you have got an anhydrite subfloor that is reading damp, other than removing the latents to give that moisture a time to sort of dissipate and come out, and sort of waiting for it to dry. I think there are sort of other types of systems and other ways you can cover those floors, but certainly in our range, make sure it's dry first. But yeah, so going back to your question there about the fibre reinforced, we actually have a number of materials that are fibre reinforced. I think the most popular at the moment is our Level It Renovate, which is sort of a water-based. Typically, we've seen that our bag and bottle products do very well and really sort of lead the way popularity-wise. But the Level It Renovate, I think people are starting to move more towards it. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but definitely the fibres being in there is one. Sort of it adds the strength, it gives versatility, and Level It Renovate particularly is very versatile, can go, again, back to this, people wanting products to be versatile and go over multiple different subfloors. Can be used with a lot of underfloor heating systems, can go very deep, can be used outside, can be left as a workhorse. And the fibres, as the product behaves differently with all the different subfloors and sort of elements that it's exposed to, the fibres sort of knit the whole screed together and reduce any hairline cracking, sort of holding it all together. Level It Superflex 30, again, you kind of tend to find it with our more flexible products. We add the fibres in there to just make sure as the products flex, the fibres are going to help knit it together, reduce any chances of hairline cracking, sort of as that flexibility is needed.
That's great, thank you. Well, I'm just going to give all four of you the heads up that in a moment or two, I'm going to give you an opportunity to just give us one final thought about your particular products. So I'll go around you in turn, but just to give you time to prepare, except for you, Martin, sorry. I've got one quick question for you, and yes. That is, we talked in your video about mixing times.
Yes.
What about mixing tools? Do you have any guidance for us on suitable tools for mixing smoothing compounds?
Yeah, I mean, typically what we would advise people to use is a birdcage mixer, because what spiral mixers can do, they can draw air into the mix. So birdcage mixers, what they tend to do is they tend to smash the polymer as opposed to just spinning the polymer around.
Mm-hmm.
So we would always say use the correct tool for the job. Keep your mixers down to below 500 RPM for the simple reason the faster that you mix the product, the more air that's being drawn in. Also, that generates heat, which will accelerate the cure time on some products.
Mm-hmm.
So it's using the correct tools for the job.
That's great, thanks. And just one quickie here. Stephen's just come on and said, have you experienced nylon fibers sprouting from a subfloor? And what can be done to resolve that?
Fibers in a floor, I mean, typically a lot of fibers in sand and cement fibers, they're really coarse fibers. A lot of that is through method of application. If you're using something like a spike roller, for instance, that can make the fibers stand on end. I mean, fortunately, within our fiber reinforced products, they are very small fibers. They're smaller than a human hair, so they naturally want to lay flat.
Okay.
Obviously, if somebody's comes to a job where they've got a lot of fibers sticking up out the floor, a copper disc will generally remove the fibers.
Okay, that's great. Sand it down, and they should respond, because I think a lot of the modern screeds that builders are using are fiber reinforced.
Yes.
But the fibers are not as short and fine and cooperative, shall we say, as the fibers in smoothing compounds tend to be. So
that might be a good segue to mention our new screed product, Richard, which is the Ultrasem sort of screed binder, because we use the same very fine fibers in that product, and that is to build up screed. So if you can get on site earlier before the screed's been laid, perhaps recommend that one's used.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Lizzie. That's really helpful. So I've given you all a little bit of a heads up. One last comment to make before we wind up today's presentation. Michael, I'm going to start with you.
Right, no problem. Well, obviously the jump pack system is obviously very easy and light to handle and easy to work with. You know, taking it in and out of properties is very easy because it's 1.2 meters by 60 centimeters in size for the packs. There's no priming required. Also, during installations as well, the installation itself doesn't necessarily have to close. As an example, we did a large area of Manchester University whilst the students were still using the facility. And that's pretty much it from me. So I'll hand over to David.
Okay, David, come on then.
Yeah, I think probably if you had to say the three things, it's three things that we feature, and it is that it's very quick and it's clean, shortens your downtime. It will tackle problem floors and different types of floors, and it solves many acoustic issues.
Thank you very much. Lizzie.
I'm really sorry. Can you just remind me what the question was?
The question is very simple. It's your chance to have a last word about your product before we say goodbye.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. In that case, I would say if in doubt of which product is best to use, always ask us. There's no question that, is daft that we haven't heard before. We're here to help. All of the sales team have a lot of experience in smoothing compound selection. And then as our support team, our technical team are really good in making sure that it's going to fit your real world situations for what you're actually needing it to do. So if in doubt, always ask, and there will be a smoothing compound that's going to suit your needs perfectly in the range.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And Martin, the last word goes to you.
Well, if you've got any issues, we've always got a system or a product that will be suitable for whatever you need. Just feel free to contact us.
Brilliant. Well, look, first of all, a big thank you to all four of you for being willing to stand in the firing line and take the questions that have come in. Thanks very much for your time, for your presentations. Unfortunately, as you'll notice in the comments box, Steve Bolton was unable to join us. So FBall haven't been represented during the Q&A. But if you have any questions, there's a link been put there that you can put any direct questions to FBall that you would like to. So 2 reminders. One is the Live Expo on the 1st of July, when it'll be a massive event. Please register. The link has been put in the chat box for you, as has the link for our next session, which is on the 25th of May. And that's on using colours and shapes in your design. So quite a contrast to today's very practical presentation. Please get yourself registered for the 25th of May. And all I've got to do now is say thanks, everybody, and thank you for watching. And you need to log out, and then the session will close down. Thanks ever so much. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.